afternoon. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. And today we are going to start with Korea-Africa Summit. As President William Ruto arrived in Seoul, South Korea on Monday to attend the Korea-Africa Summit. And during the summit, Africa and Korea are expected to discuss topics of mutual interest such as trade, promotion and industrialization, infrastructure development, and job creation. According to the State House, the discussion will address the agricultural productivity, climate change, and the transition of carbon-free energy. Here is more on the same.
President William Ruto arrived in Seoul, South Korea today to attend the Korea-Africa Summit. The president was accompanied by the First Lady Rachel Ruto, among other dignitaries.
So, this is your second time to visit Korea, I heard. Yeah, right.
In a statement on Sunday evening, State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed said that the summit will discuss areas of mutual interest, including trade promotion, industrialization, infrastructure development, and job creation. During his visit, President Ruto will hold bilateral talks with President Yoon Suk Yeol to discuss the status of the 132 billion Kenyan shillings framework arrangement partnership, which was agreed upon during his previous visit in November 2022.
Very good. How are you?
Kenya and South Korea are expected to finalize a labor migration program, which could make Kenya one of the few African countries approved for labor supply under the Korea's Employment Permit System program. The summit seeks to strengthen relations between South Korea and Africa, utilizing their respective strengths, promoting mutual growth, addressing global challenges, and to bolster solidarity in peace and security.
South Korea First Summit with the African nation represents a milestone in expanding diplomatic and economic relations with the continent under the theme, The Future We Make Together, shared growth, sustainability, and solidarity. The African Summit aims to alleviate dialogue between Korea and the African nations to the highest levels. On the first day, leaders will address the global issues such as climate change, food security, and supply chain stability. Following the discussions, President Yoon and the Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, chairman of the African Nation Union AU, will issue a joint statement outlining key cooperation areas. This landmark event, the largest multilateral gathering hosted by Korea under President Yoon Suk Yeol administration, will see delegations from 48 African countries, including 25 state leaders, coming together to enhance Korea-Africa relations. Listen in.
The visit presents an opportunity for us to tap into the Korean agriculture sector, tap in knowledge, obviously Korea being more advanced.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Guinea on Monday on the first leg of a three-country African tour aimed to boosting support for Moscow. Lavrov is expected to continue his tour in Chad and Burkina Faso, according to Russian state media reports. A trip coming as Moscow looks to bolster support from countries on the continent amidst Russian isolation on the world stage. Here is more.
The trip comes as Moscow looks to bolster support from the countries on the continent amidst Russian isolation on the world stage. After its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Russia saw its relations with the West plummet. In July last year, Russian President Vladimir Putin hosted several African heads of government at the second Russian-African summit in St. Petersburg. During the summit, Russia made the promises focused on delivering grain to a number of African countries, while also declaration and intervention to strengthen economic and security cooperation between Moscow and the continent. Russia's main economic interests in Africa have centered on its grain, arms, extractives, and nuclear power exports. More than 70% of all Russian trade with Africa in 2021 was carried out in just 4 countries: Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, and South Africa. Sylvia Makori, GBS News.
Moving on to Iran former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad on Sunday registered a candidate for the upcoming presidential election, aiming to return the country's top political position following the tragic helicopter crash that killed President Ibrahim Raisi. Ahmadinejad's entries into the race adds pressure to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, especially given Ahmadinejad's past challenges to the cleric's authority. The registration period ends on Tuesday, with the Guardian Council expected to announce the final list of the candidates within 10 days, leaving a brief 2-week campaign period before the late June vote. Here is more.
The first candidates to join
the controversial ex-leader, known for his inflammatory rhetoric and holocaustic denial, is re-entering the political scene amidst escalating tensions between Iran and Western nations over Tehran's advancing nuclear program, its military support for Russia in the Ukraine conflict, and its harsh suppression of dissent. Additionally, Iran's backing of militia groups across the Middle East has gained further scrutiny as the Yemen's Houthi rebels attack vessels in the Red Sea, linked to the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. The June 28 election will determine the successor to Raisi. Other notable candidates include former Parliament Speaker Ali Larijani and ex-Central Bank Chief Abdel Nasser Haimanti, both of whom have registered. The acting President Mohamed Mokba is also seen as a potential frontrunner due to his recent meetings with Khamenei. Former reformist President Muhammad Khatami is another possible contender, though his candidacy remains uncertain. Thomas Musyoki, GBS News.
Spain Foreign Minister on Monday outlined his country's full support over a proposed ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, detailed by United States. President Joe Biden on Friday detailed a 3-phase deal proposed by Israel to Hamas militants that he stated would lead to the release of the remaining hostages in Gaza and end the grinding nearly 8-month-old war. Abbas called for the immediate release of the hostages held by Hamas, as well as opening the aid routes into Gaza. Here is more.
Abbas called for the immediate release of hostages held by Hamas, as well as opening of aid routes into Gaza. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said the Israel military presence in the Gaza Strip was not welcome by his country and the vast majority of members of the international community.
The Israeli military presence in Gaza is certainly not only rejected by Egypt, but also by the vast majority of members of the international community. And on the link between that presence and the Rafah crossing, there is a clear Egyptian position and policy in rejecting the Israeli presence at the Rafah crossing. The Rafah crossing is the only point of contact between the Palestinians and the rest of the world.
Egyptian Foreign Ministry has condemned the seizure of the Rafah crossing, describing in remarks last month as a dangerous escalation. Separately, Abbas gave warm congratulations to Claudia Sheinbaum, who will be in Mexico's first female leader in the nation's more than 200 years of independence. Peris Kego, GBS News.
Now, concerning the hush money trial that happened recently, there have been many questions that are coming up, and some of them: will Donald Trump go to jail? And can Trump still contest for the presidential elections? Well, Donald Trump was found guilty of the hush money case. Does that mean he will go to jail? And how can he contest for the presidential election? We'll answer all these questions and more just in a while. But first, we have a video for you.
Very innocent man.
I think it's all a sham.
Justice been served. Justice been served.
It was a historic day in the United States, but not in a good way, after a New York court convicted Donald Trump of nothing, and this has never happened before. No former president has ever been tried or convicted in America, so Trump is the first. And this is a lot more than legal case. It is a politically charged controversy, and one that could determine America's political future. Let me break it down for you first. All of these three important questions. What are the questions? What is this case about? Will Trump go to jail, and what can he steal? Can he still run for presidency? Trump was facing 30 charges in New York, 34 charges, and all of them were linked to the same case of paying hush money. In 2006, Trump had sexual encounter outside matrimony, and the woman was a porn star named Stormy Daniels. No one knew this for a long time, and in 2016, Trump ran for presidency, and he feared that the news of that encounter would leak. So what did he do? He paid a hush money to the woman, basically paid for her to be quiet, which is not illegal. It is how the money was paid. That is what landed him into trouble. Trump falsified business documents, and that was a charge against him. The prosecution built quite a strong case. They called 20 witnesses in total, and one of them was Trump's fixer, the man who paid the hush money in 2016. That was Michael Cohen. So the case ended in conviction, and Trump was found guilty. Which brings us to the second question, the number 2. Will Donald Trump go to jail? Highly and unlikely. The maximum punishment is 4 years in jail, but that is pretty rare. Judges often give few months or even fine, and in this case, it is not just any convict. We are talking about Donald Trump. He is a senior citizen and a former US president, so putting him in jail is a tough call. Also, Trump can appeal this verdict. His team already has signaled that they will do it, and if they do so, things will get delayed. Trump's sentencing is slated for July 11th, but an appeal could push that back, which brings us to the final question. Can he still run for presidency? Surprisingly, yes, he can. Being convicted or jailed does not disqualify you. It's quite different from other systems where such conditions can disqualify one from running for the office. But that's not the case in America. So that is not a thing to worry about Donald Trump. In fact, he's tried to weaponize this conviction. Trump has always pitched himself as a political outsider, as a man persecuted by the deep state. So this played right into his narrative. Listen in.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent, and I think it's just a disgrace.
Classic Trump defiant as always, but how will this affect his election chances? Well, among his supporters, it is a boost. Many of them see this as a witch hunt, so the conviction will not move them. If anything, it will solidify their perception that this whole thing was rigged by Joe Biden. That's what Trump supporters believe, and we have already seen the evidence of that. After the verdict, people rushed to the Trump's website campaign. They wanted to donate money, and the traffic was so much that the website crashed. Eventually, the donations resumed, but guess how? How much Trump campaign raised? Almost $35 million. After the conviction, $35 million. The streets had the same sentiment. Trump supporters refused to accept that he was guilty. Listen in.
It's all a sham. I think they shouldn't be able to run election interference the way they are.
At the end of the day, it's only going to increase his support like every other time they indicted him.
He's actually going to win because it's in the public's eye how they're using this judicial system just to penalize him, to get him away from running.
So Trump voters are unmoved, but what about the rest of America? Opinion polls show a tough fight between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So the focus is on the swing states. You can't just depend on your core vote bank anymore alone. You need to get the fence sitters, because among this conviction could be a deal breaker. Let's look at some of the poll. YouGov just published one of its 50% America agree with Trump's conviction. They agree the conviction, only 30%. Disagree the other poll from January this year. It covers America's 7 swing states. And what did it find? 53% voters said they would vote for Trump if he was convicted. And that number rose to 55 if he was jailed. So the big takeaway is this. Trump voters do not care about the conviction, but the swing state voters do. The question is, how will these sentiments play out in the days ahead? A lot depends on the narrative. Joe Biden and Donald Trump addressed this issue. Biden has not said much until lately, and the White House has said it respects the rule of the law. It was very business-like statement, but campaign reasons don't expect that to continue. The tone will sharpen. Reports say that Biden aides are looking to capitalize. Going forward, they will want to call Trump a criminal and technically won't be wrong. But such strategies can backfire, and also Trump will refine his approach going forward. He too will weaponize this verdict. We'll talk more about this as we continue on this biting election in years and how it will unfold. We'll keep you more updated on the U.S. election saga. And that international news brings us to our first break. We have more and this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
Alini-inspire, let's say my husband, because yeye ndo alikuwa na hiyo biashara.
Yes. So maybe unaweza tuambia hizo challenges zile unapitia, then how do you overcome them?
Like sometimes hadi nakupeanga do, nilikuwa nimeshikilia kitu yako, ukirudisha do yangu na kupatia.
Kwa hivyo it's like
let me tell you, uzuri ya biashara, ukiwa umeka tuseme vitu mingi pamoja. Like ukikosa kuuza sockets, utauza viatu. Ukikosa kuuza viatu, furniture zitaenda. Environment. Mtu au learn environment kwanza unaona. Unajineza kwa place hakuuzwi mandazi. So nikiweka mandazi, kutakuwa na place ya kuuzwa mandazi. So they all come. Mtu anaishi Githurai, unataka kwenda kumwekea Air Force za box. Atanunua saa ngapi?
Na mwenye ananunua anajua mahali zinatoka.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching the Ambassador GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. Now, official results from the recent election were confirmed on Sunday, indicating that no single party had won. We are talking of South Africa. None had won the majority, ushering in an unprecedented era of coalition talks with over a turnout of 58.6%. The African National Congress, ANC, secured just over 40% of the vote, winning out of 159 out of the 400 seats in the parliament, marking a significant drop from the 230 seats that they held the previous election. The pressure is on for the coalition talks to advance swiftly as South Africa now faces a pivotal moment as it transitions into a new era of coalition and governance. Here is more.
South Africa is poised for a new political landscape as coalition talks loom large. With no single party securing a majority, the stage is set for unprecedented negotiations. Official results from the recent election confirmed on Sunday reveal a significant shift in parliamentary dynamics, with the African National Congress securing just over 40% of the vote, marking a departure from its previous dominance.
Whether we like it or not, they have spoken. As the leaders of political parties, as all those who occupied or occupy positions of responsibility in society, we have heard the voices of our people, and we must respect their choices and their wishes.
The Democratic Alliance also saw a slight increase in its seats, adding to the complexity of coalition possibilities. Political analyst Professor Patrick Bond underscores the critical juncture faced by both major parties.
Crunch point for both ANC and the Democratic Alliance. Will it be to both of their advantage to combine with a solid 62% of the vote, or would the ANC rather just scrape by at above 50 with a combination of small parties, possibly one of them, the fourth party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, or even reaching out to Jacob Zuma and saying, come back and we'll give you deputy president and your honor will be restored.
Indeed, the pressure is mounting as President Cyril Ramaphosa calls for unity among political parties to navigate this uncharted territory. With the clock ticking on coalition negotiations, all eyes are on South Africa as it embraces a new era of governance. Alex Mwangi, GBS News.
Famine in Sudan has been imminent through the UN humanitarian warning of aid agencies continue to prevent from providing relief. The situation would be dire in a bleak of assessment of a terrible situation in Sudan where the conflict in its second year, the heads of 19 global humanitarian organizations issuing an alert warning that further obstacles to providing aid rapidly and scale would mean more deaths of people. The sum of 18 million people in the country are already acutely hungry, with 3.6 million children acutely malnourished, according to the OCHA spokesperson's statement. Listen in.
One of the focuses of the AI for Good Global Summit this week is going to be how can we develop standards to combat misinformation and deepfakes, and you have different techniques on that. So for example, you have watermarking, which is basically an invisible signature or a digital fingerprint, if you will, that can tell if a piece of digital media, it could be a photo, audio, video, has been altered or has it been AI generated.
Deepfakes of fabricated media, often using AI.
The International Telecommunication Union, I2, launched its first AI for Good Global Summit 2024 in Geneva, that is Switzerland, on Thursday, with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the I2 Secretary General Doreen Bogan Martin, joined by the host of leading AI experts to dignitaries, including HRR Princess Beatrice of York. The summit focused on leveraging artificial intelligence for global sustainable development, with the cutting-edge AI technology also showcased, highlighting their potential for a positive impact. Here is more.
And there's no putting it back. But I think there is hope. You have sent a strong message to the world that the future of AI is not yet written. And as we look to 2030 and milestones like the Summit of the Future in September, and next year's WSIS Plus 20 review, I think now is the time that we have to redouble our efforts. Let's redouble our efforts. Let's make AI innovation inclusive. Let's build safe, secure, trustworthy AI systems. And let's scale AI solutions so that we can rescue the SDGs.
Our lives, and it can turbocharge sustainable development, from bringing education and healthcare to remote areas to helping farmers boost their crops, from designing sustainable housing and transportation to providing early warning for natural disasters. AI could be a game changer for the SDGs. But transforming its potential into reality requires AI that reduces bias, misinformation, and security threats instead of aggravating them.
We are the AI generation, and this is our moment, and it's our responsibility to write the next chapter in the great story of humanity and technology, and to make it safe, to make it inclusive, and to make it sustainable. We are the AI generation, so let's meet the moment. From the AI...
In a bombshell testimony, Boeing whistleblowers Joe Jacobson and Aid Pearson alleged failures in the virtually every system of the 737 MAX jet, claiming that passengers remained unaware of the problems with the planes that they were flying on. These worries were triggered by the deadly crashes in the 2018 and 2019, which killed 346 people, as well as the door blowout on the Boeing 737 MAX Alaska Airlines flight in January. They both raised concerns about the Boeing attitude towards safety and quality control during U.S. Senate hearing in April. The DOJ, that is the United States Department of Justice, last month found the Boeing violated in 2021 deferred prosecution agreement of the DPA. The company has previously stated that it was working to improve on the safety cultures.
The Boeing MAX, and that's because I've been tracking all of the in-flight issues since it went back into service. I was part of the recertification effort, and I know there's still some safety concerns with the design, but there's also manufacturing defects that we've been tracking. We're seeing, for example, the main up-down control device on the airplane is the horizontal stabilizer. That's driven by a single motor. And that motor has failed dozens of times since it's gone back into service. And this is on new airplanes. And that's a critical piece of hardware. And so for it to fail dozens of times in the last 3 years is not a good sign on brand new airplanes.
Now let's check on the situation in Haiti. And despite ongoing arrests and attacks by the armed groups in Haiti, the World Food Program, WFP, is intensifying its operation in the Port-au-Prince to assist communities affected by violence. In May, WFP successfully delivered aid to over 93,000 people in the Cité Soleil, one of the most vulnerable and insecure neighborhoods in the capital. WFP calls on the world leaders to prioritize humanitarian assistance along security measures, stressing that long-term investments were needed to address the structural root causes of hunger and malnutrition, with the funding gap of $76.7 million through November. Immediate sustained support is also essential to prevent a worsening crisis. Listen in.
Port-au-Prince are controlled by armed groups. The port has been closed for a long time and was looted, and the airport was closed. So effectively, Port-au-Prince for the past few months has been an island. So it's really important for WFP and other humanitarians to be able to bring supplies into the city to run essential programs. So the essential services that people rely on, be it healthcare, water and sanitation, food, they require the free movement of goods and people, and right now we just haven't had that. So what we're doing with this flight is...
And that international news brings us to the end of Ambassador GBS Global. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. I've been your Ambassador Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Ambassador, same time tomorrow, same place at 1 p.m. from Monday to Friday. And may you all have a superb and the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe.